To the distinguished representative of the Pasumai Thaayagam Foundation.
Palabra.
Mr. Vice President, ahead of High Commissioner Saeed's report on Sri Lanka next week, Pasumai Thaayagam would like to discuss the Prevention of Terrorism Act, draconian piece of legislation used by Sri Lankan security forces since 1979 to provide cover for human rights violations and perpetuate impunity primarily against Tamils, but also against all other communities on the island. The OISL report critiqued the Prevention of Terrorism Act, or PTA, finding that it provides the legal context for arbitrary and indefinite detention, unfair trials, torture, and sexual violence. The government agreed in Resolution 30/1 to repeal and replace the PTA with legislation in accordance with international standards. However, the government continues to employ the PTA. Special Rapporteur Juan Mendes observed last month that the PTA is still very much in place and provides an open door for police investigators to use torture and ill treatment as a routine method of work. Out of 120 to 162 prisoners total, 48 individuals have been arrested under the Act in 2015 and 2016, while others have been held without trial for 20 years. The government must advance free, fair, and speedy trials for detainees or release those held without charges. The Attorney General's office has played a central role in prolonging arbitrary detention and stunning judicial proceedings. The international community should closely monitor cases of those prisoners, which serve as litmus tests for the rule of law in Sri Lanka. This week, President Sirisena issued a directive that officials refrain from humiliating and torturing PTA detainees. It's a start, but not good enough. We echo the call by Human Rights Watch that for the government to place moratorium on the PTA until its rapid repeal. While we welcome news that the government has drafted replacement legislation, we urge the international community to carefully monitor this process to assure that any new legislation meets international standards. 7 years after the war, and it absolutely no reason for PTA to be on the books. It's abrogation to justice that run counter to Sri Lanka's effort towards peace and reconciliation. Thank you, Mr. Vice President.
Muchas gracias.